Hello, and welcome to this limited time series. We're talking about the Plutus Summit. It's coming up May 6th to 8th in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we are here with one of the OG people of the Plutus community. Will you introduce yourself?
Hi. Hi. I'm Miranda Marquit, and I have been involved in the Plutus Awards and the Plutus community since it's been a long time. Let's just say that.
How long?
The beginning. Like we're talking 2012, probably. Yes,
Wow.
2012. So yeah. So more than 10 years, way more than 10 years. Going on
I love
15
it.
years.
Yeah, we're here for the 15th Annual Plutus Awards, and this is the first time that we're going to be hosting it in conjunction with the summit. And so I'd love to hear from you. What has made you stay so long? Because I don't know about you, but we've seen people come and go in personal finance. And of course, TikTok wasn't really that much of a thing back then. And so I am just fascinated to hear from you what it was like in the beginning and why you decided that this is still worth coming to.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it is just the connections that you make and the people and the connections that I've made in this community over the last more than a decade have been really impactful in my life, and not just about how I am as a content creator or how I work online, but also in my real life. I went to a wedding. I attended Harlan's wedding. So like
Wow.
in person, I attended Harlan's wedding. And then I have regular folks that we meet up a couple times a year. We see each other. We talk to each other on the phone in between events. Like these people are part of my life. And I think that's one of the things that we're missing right now in online content creation are those like really deeply personal, real connections. And so being a part of the helps me maintain those.
I love that you said that. Miranda and I first met at other conferences, and whenever I ask people, "What's going on tonight? What's the fun stuff?" Everyone's ask Miranda. She's in charge.
Oh no,
She's in charge of
I'm
the
not in
fun.
charge of anything, but I just sometimes know what's going on, which is nice.
Yeah, and for those folks who may not be familiar with the Plutus Foundation, can you share a little bit more about what the Plutus Foundation is meant to be doing?
Yeah, so the Plutus Foundation is specifically aimed at content creators. And a lot of it is aimed at helping content creators create content, find resources, and get support as they create mission driven. Content, right? So a lot of the folks who are in the Plutus community aren't just there for money. We do want to make money, obviously, but
Mhm.
at the same time, many of us have a mission. Many of us have a specific kind of thing we are trying to do, whether it's reaching out to underserved communities, whether it's helping women with their finances, whether it's helping teenagers learn the ropes, whether it's using your platform for good for like your community and nonprofit or political arenas. So really a lot of folks recognize that personal finance comes with different aspects of your life, different aspects of wellness, different aspects of politics, different aspects of your relationships with other people.
Right.
And the Plutus community is really committed to helping content creators address those missions, address those realities, and then have the tools and resources and support they need to serve their communities.
The Plutus Impact Summit is going to be full of people, not just the leaders who are leading all the sessions and the speakers that we have, but all the attendees have been working on problems like this over the last few years as the landscape has changed quite a bit. And you're going to be able to work in masterminds with people and have workshops and really dig into these problems, especially if you're a financial coach and you're looking for people to help. If you're a financial advisor and you want to help people manage their money, this is going to give you the skills that you need to get in front of the people and make sure that they are listening to you. If you want to learn more about the Plutus Impact Summit, then you sign up at plutusimpact.com and you'll be part of a community immediately.
I love that. I love it. The obvious question I should be asking for those people who may not know you is what kind of content do you create and have you created over the years and how has that evolved since you first started?
I don't know. I've done almost all of it. So I started out as a freelance writer. I still do a little bit of freelance on the side. Currently, I work with one of the most well known publications in the country. I try not to like drag them into my business here. So we're going to, but I do work with that But one of the things that I have used my platform and my content for over the years is really looking at the intersection, because a lot of people like to say personal finance isn't political. And that's BS, right? Are we not swearing in this? Anyway, that's BS.
It's
And
fair.
so great, that's bullshit. And so anyway, Bernadette knows me of old. I swear all the time, but that's what I do. It's my lexicon. So anyway, but no, so one of the things that I like to look at is what is the intersection of political policy and your personal finances? What is the intersection of the economy and your personal finances? Where are those intersecting? What is going on? And what can you do with your money to make more informed decisions and choices, and how, and then I write too about how having access to financial health provides you with more options and provides you with more opportunity to pursue your values and live a life more grounded in your values. So those are some of the things that I've talked about, and I've become more strident about that as the years have passed and more insistent upon that as the years have passed. And to this, so people are not surprised when I do something like say, hey, here's how the government trying to get rid of the CFPB can affect your personal finances. A lot of
Right.
people would look at that and say, oh, that's just politics. Oh, that's just a government agency. Oh, no, that has an impact on your actual personal finances and what's going on. And so I've been really big on making sure that the things that I write and the things that I share really do align with those values and really do help educate people about how much it matters that you do pay attention to the economy, to finance, to to public policy, to pay attention to state and local politics and what's going on in your own community, because that matters too.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I love about being part of Plutus this year is that we're not shying away from the topics that maybe other events or other conferences might be afraid to touch. And so I really appreciate you for bringing that lens and bringing it in a way that's credible, that is grounded, that is rooted in factual information. And one of the things that I struggled with, I will say this, is as I was putting together the content for this year's summit, I was looking at our different leaders and saying, okay, which eye do they best represent? And for those of you who are coming to the summit, you'll know that the 6 I's that we have under the power of I are income, investing, interconnectivity, impact, and the other two, let's see,
It's always the
intention.
last two.
I was always the last two. Intention and income, investing. I have to get better at this. I'll
Oh
redo this.
no.
Income,
Oh,
investing, interconnectivity, intention, impact, and insight.
yes, there it is.
There
We
you
did
go. There
it.
you go.
You did it anyway. I was practically trying to find my.
I'll edit out the other part. But what I struggled with was that when I thought of you, I went back and forth, and you would have been great at either insight or interconnectivity, because the picture that I loved most of you that I found on the internet was like is like you in front of a news van and just like being out on the ground. And so, can I ask you, because even though you're going to be the main leader for interconnectivity, and we'll get to that. I know that you have a ton of insight on how do you actually stay grounded when the news cycle is basically trying to keep you off your hinges, and how do you make sure that you don't lose your mind as a content creator when there's just so much information being thrown at us?
Yeah, so I think that balance between, because like people who say turn off the news, I don't subscribe to that. We should know what's going on and we should be invested in what is happening in our world, right? We should understand this. But at the same time, I also know that it is not healthy to be doom scrolling all the time and let your life be consumed with news, especially news that might be national or global in nature. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think these are important things to know about and things to be informed about and things to understand. But I also think that you have to strike that balance. There has to be a limit, right? There has to be a limit to how much of this you're going to let consume your life, especially when it's things that you cannot directly control. So one of the things I do a lot is talk to people about, hey, have you been paying attention to what's going on in your state and your local areas? Because that's going to have an impact on your life. And that is something you can impact. That is something you can affect. And I talk about how one of my favorite examples is how along with a group of like-minded citizens, when we needed a new water tower, we got together and we went to the city council and said, wait a sec, you are planning on putting this water tower in place of a park, and it's the only green space that serves this low income neighborhood. That's not right. And let's find a new place to put this water tower. And we found a new place that was very suitable. It destroyed 6 downtown parking spaces that people weren't using that much anyway. But being involved at the local level made a difference, right, in life. And then you look at things like state level things. One of the things I said actually on a panel we were at together was I said, hey, don't, let's not make the mistake of saying that reproductive rights have nothing to do with your finances, because do. And that was a panel we were on together several years ago. And you look at your state laws, those kinds of things directly impact your personal finance choices and the things that you can do as whatever group you're a part of, right? I'm a woman and I am queer. And so the things that my state is doing impacts me on a very real level. I could be kicked out of my apartment at any time if my property management company decides they don't want a queer lady living in this apartment. They can actually kick me out. I don't have housing protection in my state. And that's a very real personal finance issue. And just the fact that it took me 3 years to find somebody who would tie my tubes because I was considered young and fertile, and this was considered a life choice, that's a whole other thing, right? That's another personal finance issue. And the fact that my insurance wouldn't even cover the procedure. And those are personal finance issues that are affected by state law and that I can have a closer impact on. And so a lot of the time when I talk about, okay, what kind of news are we consuming? What are we paying attention to? Have you looked at the headlines about things that you might be able to directly control or directly have an impact on if you organize with your neighbors, if you get together with your community and you make that concerted effort together? And I think for me, part of that too is saying, okay, what in the news can I take action on, and who can I ally myself with to take that action on in my community? And BS, are we building community as we go? And that's hugely important to me when we draw that back to the interconnectivity piece of it is, how are we building community? Are we building community? We can build community online. Are we building community in person? How are we building these communities? And that really helps me with the news cycle and the doom scrolling,
Right.
and to stay grounded and say, okay, what am I doing in my community? How can my community together help affect change? And what are we working for? And sometimes the change is very small to begin with, and it can be hard to see, and it can be very frustrating. I get frustrated and salty a lot. But
but you look good doing it.
Have you met me? But I get frustrated and salty a lot. But having my community and having people that I can go to helps keep me grounded. Being able to take a step back and find moments of joy, even with this horrible news cycle and even with everything that's going on, taking a step back and finding moments of joy with people that I love is also part of that equation.
I love that. I think we might have to have a part 2 of this because you just deep dived into so many things. I'm like, ooh, I want to talk so much more about that. But maybe also this is a reason for those of you who are watching to come to the summit and talk about real issues live with real people instead of just screaming at each other in the comments on the internet. Here's what I'll ask you next is, you are leading up the efforts for the 15th Annual Plutus Awards this year. And I am just so pumped to see who comes away with the cute little trophies. We were actually just looking at those today. And I wanted to hear from you. What have been some things that you've really loved about past awards ceremonies, and what are you looking forward to this year?
I think the biggest thing for me is this really truly is, to a major degree, a community show, right?
Yes.
We're not out here looking for like the top celebrities or the people that get like millions and millions of downloads and everything else. And yes, we have plenty of folks who are involved with Plutus, who have been involved in the past, who do have millions of views on their social media or big book deal. I don't know. Somebody here has a big book deal. Hi. Anyway, Bernadette's book, by the way, is probably going to be nominated. So yeah, but seriously though, I think that's one of the big things for me is We really try and make this a true community award show. The other thing that I like is a lot of the time we look specifically for up and coming voices who maybe have not been heard and who are maybe shunted to the side by mainstream media or big coverage, to bring this kind of content into the light and to have it reach more people and help more people. And I think that remains one of my favorite things about the Plutus Awards, is that we really do make an effort to draw in the community, make it a true community support award show, and really look for those voices that are saying really important things that are largely ignored by mainstream sources, that might be ignored by bigger platforms, so that we can get that information out there to reach wider audiences who might need it.
Thank you so much for saying all that, because sometimes when you hear award ceremony, you're going to think it's like hoity toity and very just woo, like that kind of vibe. And I think we are really excited this year to make it fun, to, like you said, make it peer led and driven. And something that has always been very valuable for me is that whenever another personal finance person tells me that they've read my book and liked it, that means more to me than any critics thing that I've gotten in the past. And this happened just this past week. I had another financial coach who said, I read your book and it was actually pretty good. And I was like, actually, and I was like, I need to do better marketing, because she, for some reason, didn't think it was going to be that great. But that meant so much to me, because she said, I read a lot of personal finance books. And so knowing that there is an entity like the Plutus Awards, who is actually recognizing independent creators, people who don't have a huge budget or have a huge following, that's so much needed in this community. So thank you for doing that. And I'll ask you a personal question here, because I am newer to the Plutus community. And for those of you who've been here around, know that Harlan has been the founder. But Harlan is like the most low-key person I've met in a while. He just doesn't want to talk about himself. So I'm going to ask you, since you went to Harlan's wedding and you seem to know him a little bit better than me, what do you think is great about Harlan being the founder and having done this now for 15 years?
I think the big thing for me is that he really does want to see community. And he really is interested in how we interact together as a community, how we support each other as a community. And I think it really goes, I think it really says a lot that most people don't know who he is. Right. Some of the newer folks, a lot of us, like, kind of in the personal finance community, of course, know who Harlan is. He's been around for just about as long as I have been around. But we've both been around
Mm-hmm.
for about the same amount of time in the personal finance space. And I think that the fact that he so often does take a step back and really focuses more on the mission and focuses more on people and what we can accomplish, what is next, and really says a lot about who he is and how he's not in it for the fame and the glory.
He really is not.
If there for the fame
Sometimes,
and the glory, there would be such a different thing.
yeah, it would totally be a different thing. And so I really appreciate the humbleness that he comes with this. And he genuinely, like I said, he loves being in community. So I'm going to ask you two more questions here. You and I actually met a couple of years ago, but then I got to know you a little bit more when we were in All Day Mastermind. And this event, we are, unlike other events that you might be seeing in personal finance, we really want people to come away with tangible deliverables and an actionable plan, because, like you said, we're all here to spread the good message, but it's hard to do that if you're not making money as well. So what do you think is the benefit of coming into a mastermind type of environment versus just like a kind of run-of-the-mill conference? What have you gotten from past masterminds?
Yeah, I think for me, the one that we were at together, which was somewhat small, what I loved about that was I came away with an action plan, and that was just very helpful. Now, did I implement the action plan? That's debatable. I did some of
Yeah.
the things. I did some of the
Mhm.
things on the list, but I did come away with an action plan that I could implement and that was practical for me to implement. And then I also think that it's great because when you're in that sort of collaborative environment, like an actual collaborative environment, and you could do this a little to some extent if you are online. Like I've been part of like online masterminds and done Zoom meetings and stuff, but there really is no substitute for collaboration in an in-person environment. There is no substitute for being able to look in somebody's eyes,
That's
to be
right.
able to like actually feel the vibe, actually get into the flow together. And there really is no substitute for that. And I think that is one of the great things about that kind of environment, because it really does allow you to drill down, and it allows you to interact with people who are seeing you with fresh eyes. Like Bernadette, I remember like some of the things that you said to me in that mastermind session were things that I would never have heard from people who knew me really well, because they are not viewing me with fresh eyes. And being in a room with somebody who can like view you with fresh eyes, give you somewhat of an outside opinion, and then also be in an environment that's safe for you to be frank in, right? We're not rude to each other, but sometimes the hard things need to be said. And if an environment where you have created some safety and some comfort with each other, it is safe to say those things, bring those new insights, and then say them directly. And then I think you get a lot of good out of that when you have constructive, helpful suggestions from people who can see you with fresh eyes. I think that's hugely important and very helpful to actually push you into your next phase.
I love that. And I so appreciate that. And when we talked about doing this event, I was really pushing for this type of format because you and I have been to a ton of conferences, and sometimes the talks are good and sometimes the talks are not good. And a lot of us are also we're asking people to take 3 days out of their regular work week to be able to come and do this. And so I really appreciate you sharing that insight, because some people may not have been in a mastermind before, or maybe people have been in other masterminds and they're like, this again. But I think what's going to be really unique about this is that we are bringing on experts from different areas within personal finance. None of the leaders who are presenting have been working for less than 15 years in personal finance. And so unlike other events who someone went viral last week on TikTok and now they're speaking, that's not going to be what you see here. We're going to see lots of really awesome creators, but we are focused on people who want to build long-term sustainable businesses and platforms, and people who want to keep spreading the good word. So if people want to learn more about you, how can they find out about you?
Go ahead and go to mirandamarquit.com. Sometimes there's new stuff there. No, if you actually really want what I'm doing on the day-to-day, on the daily, if you want to see just like the weird, and I don't have a ton of social media followers, and part of that's because I don't have a very curated feed. If you follow me on Instagram at mmarquit, so at mmarquit on Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, you're going to get a mix of, here's this video that I made about what the Fed did today, but also here is my daily journal prompt about money, my daily prompt that I use using tarot cards. So go ahead, make it. Oh, and by the way, here's a picture of me snowshoeing last week.
I
I
love that
mean,
about you, though. I
it's
like
just a
finding out
mess.
what random thing you're doing.
It's just a
You know,
mess, but if you want a nice mix of, I don't know if it's nice, but if you want just a random mix of what is going on in Miranda's life and seeing how I live my life and live my values and live my money values, because everything I do on Instagram is also a reflection of my financial and money values. If you want to see how I'm actually living my life in accordance with my money values, follow me on Instagram at mmarquit. You might be disappointed.
I'm not. One of the reasons that I
But there
love
we are.
following you is because you're just like a normal person. Like a lot of times, people on social media, it's so curated that you're like, is this even
Mhm.
real? And you and I are similar. On Instagram, I just post whatever I'm thinking that day. Like most of
Right.
the time, it has nothing to do with personal finance. But actually, people have told me they really like it because it's not all personal finance. And so I really appreciate you saying that. And if you want to come join us May 6th to 8th in Charlotte, North Carolina, we have lots of fun activities, as well as the award ceremony, as well as 3 days of jam-packed content that will help you grow your business and your platform. You can find out more about us at plutusimpact.com, and we hope to see you there. Bye, everybody. See you next time.